Welcome, my name is Fabian Lenz and I'm going to talk about how to gather and analyze application requirements for the Horizon conceptual design. When we talk about designing an EUC solution, VMware has kind of created a certain design methodology, and this methodology starts always with the use case and the business drivers. Afterwards, we talk about how to create pods and blocks in this design, which is more part of logical design, and how to use the Horizon components within our environment. Afterwards, we create a vSphere design, the proper storage design, the proper service definitions around our solution. And for sure, we need to validate that against the end user experience and probably reiterate our steps, change the use cases, change our sizing, change our configuration items within Horizon. So we start with the use case, and that's what we're going to talk about now. The use case definition is quite important in our environment. It correlates the hardware, the software, and the user requirements into a certain specification. The use cases always maps afterwards to the Horizon solution that we are using with our environment. At the same time, we need to assign user groups and locations to those use cases so that we have the user requirements, we have our specification, our parameters, and we have created a table around those information that we need to fill with the information we gathered through the assessment phase. So what do we need? We need the current desktop and application inventory. As we have talked about it before, we need to get a proper assessment of our environment. We need to figure out what kind of hardware is used, how's the resource utilization in the current state, which operating systems are we using currently, what kind of, how do the end user print? Do they use any kind of local connected printers or do they use network printers? We need to figure out which peripherals the end user need. Things like thumbprint recognition, things like any kind of digital pen that is needed for signing documents. Those are all the information we need to figure out and that we need to add to the use case in the end. We need to figure out how many monitors, displays, and which resolution the end user need, and for sure which applications are required to fulfill the business need of the platform that serves the end user as the digital workspace of tomorrow. Once we have those use cases defined, we need to correlate those information with the reality of the user's desktops. We need to get a user acceptance, a proper user acceptance. The user must be as happy with our virtual desktop solution as he has been before with his probably physical desktop solution. So when we create this use case information table, we need to include the current state of the environment. What kind of workload do we add to this use case? Do they need, only a low number of CPU memory resources, only a low number of disk space, or do they require specific characteristics like 3D virtualization or 3D acceleration, a certain operating system? And we need to also add the information what kind of desktop pools from the Horizon world we need. Should they be dedicated desktops, floating desktops where we extract every time a user logs in a desktop from a pool of resources and give it to the user and drop it back to the pool once the user has finished his work or working in his environment. The other thing that is important is how does the user access the environment? Does he access it over any kind of internal network only? Does he need to go over the internet or any kind of other external network? So we need to figure out where's the physical location of the user when he interacts within his use case. Are there any kind of VPN requirements that need to be fulfilled? Are there any kind of other security characteristics that we need to take care about when we define or create this VDI solution? We need to figure out any kind of constraints regarding network latency and bandwidth. So do we have any kind of remote offices with only a certain amount of bandwidth that can be used for such a solution? And all of those information, those use case information, will have a concrete impact on our design decision in a later stage of our architectural design. What are key applications for the user? Is it Microsoft Office? Do they use Office 365? Are there any other SaaS-based solution? How are the applications licensed? Do we need to take care about that as well when we delivering this platform? And do they have any certain needs for audio or video requirements into the virtual desktop? Another important thing is, does the user need to have any kind of administrator privileges? Does he need to be able to install application? Do we know how many users will connect to the environment at the same time? How many concurrent users do we have? And how do we categorize those users? Are they like a task worker that is only requiring a browser and Office application, or a power user that requires 3D acceleration, a certain amount of CPU, a certain amount of memory, a certain persistence characteristic? Or do we have only a mobile user that needs to access key information from any device over the internet? Do we have a kiosk user that is required to have unauthenticated access to a virtual desktop to create something like a view-only solution in a hotel lobby or in any kind of company entrance area? Typical requirements that we have figured out during VDI or end-user computing projects are that users need to have access to their applications and data without utilizing a VPN solution. That's really important. So we want to access our applications, our data, without using a certain VPN solution. At the same time, a specific requirement can be that applications should be assigned on a per user basis, not per computer or installed on all computers. So for certain users, we want to have certain applications. At the same time, we need to make sure that externally connected users over the internet, over an unsecure network, should be treated differently than users that are connected internally from a corporate LAN. When we go over the internet into our environment, we need to make use of a second factor authentication. Otherwise, external access is not granted. That's also something we need to extract as an information and build into the solution afterwards. The delivery and the life cycle of an application must be centrally managed. We don't want to use legacy software distribution methods that deploy an application over the LAN one-to-one from a central server location to a single endpoint. We want to use modern mechanisms to deliver applications to the end user. And all of those things must be centrally managed. And for sure, user settings, they should be consistent and persistent across the usage of multiple devices. Those are typical requirements that we gather during the initial phase, during the conceptual design phase of the VDI environment design. What are relevant application questions during this assessment phase? What applications exist in today's landscapes? That's really, really important. We need to figure out what kind of applications do we have. We need to make usage of any kind of inventory systems, of any kind of assessment solution that helps us to figure out who is using which application. Which applications are today delivered as a terminal service application? So do we have those applications as well? Which technology we're using underneath? And that's really, really important. How are the applications delivered today? Is it done via SCCM, via any kind of other third-party software distribution method? What software as a service solutions are used today? That's an information that we require. And how does this change in the future? What is the strategy regarding cloud-based applications? How do we manage mobile applications today? How can users request new applications? Do they have something like a self-service catalog, or what other method should we use to give a user the right application that he needs to fulfill his daily task? How do we update those applications? Also very, very important to know to build the right solution afterwards. And also quite important, is a user allowed to install his own applications, or shall we deny this capability to install applications on his own behalf? No matter what we give the advice to customers going the end user computing VDI road, we need to make sure that there's a clear vision about where we are heading to. We need to make an analysis, an assessment of the current situation, but we also need to give a proper advice to the management, to the stakeholders, what the goal is of our environment. Do we want to have a identity-based access to all kind of applications that are relevant for the end user? Do they have something like a self-service portal? Are they able to use any kind of device they're owning on their own, based on a bring your own device strategy? So we need to figure out what is the end goal of our end user computing strategy. We need to figure out what is the current situation, and then we plan with our solution the transition phase and how the end solution system will look like once we're finished.